Good evening, afternoon, and morning, everybody, wherever you are on the planet. Welcome to Living on Borrowed Crime, Episode 3. I am your host, Scribelight. You are the audience, and joining me today is, I'm going to say Stay Awake, but for the sake of distinction, since both my guests are named Dave, I'll probably refer to him as Dave Awake. So thank you for joining us, Dave Awake.
No problem, no problem.
And once again, returning to the show for his second appearance, Dave's Lemonade. Hey, Dave.
How'd you go, Scribe?
Doing all right. So everybody, just as a couple of notes, first and foremost, I want to say hello to Sister Scribe, who is hopefully listening. And already I have some very generous super chats from people. So let me cover those real quick. I hope you guys will forgive me for not doing the usual litany of hellos to everyone, because we have a limited time here with my guests. But first and foremost, thank you so much, Kiever Dam. That is ridiculously generous of you. Thank you so much. And in honor of Kiever Dam and her usual stick-to-itiveness at providing fundraiser links for things, I'd like to direct everybody's attention to the top of the chat box. There is a link there to donate to the National Victims of Violent Crime. So if you happen to have a couple of bucks you can spare to throw that way, that would be very much appreciated. If not, if you can share the link out on social media, that also is appreciated. Continuing on, thank you, Miranda Stone, so much. Miranda Stone, the queen bee of the Dave's Lemonade Discord. She says, thanks for the button. Shout out to Pixie and Sigrid. I screwed that up, but I apologize. But thank you so much, Miranda. And then as well, as always, Derek LaRue, thank you for your continued generosity and support. Really do appreciate it. But with that, everybody, let's get into it. So Stay Awake. I've been watching your stuff for months and months now. I think since I want to say the first Elaine Campione video.
Oh, wow.
I think it was,
okay.
I think it was around then when I first, I think it was around then that I first came across your channel. And by the way, congratulations on 132,000 subscribers. That's an amazing achievement. So congratulations to you on that. So before we get into sort of more of the generalized stuff, I was curious to know, how long you've been doing YouTube and what got you into doing true crime.
Okay, so this is a long story for me. Basically, when it comes to true crime in particular, I was hooked on the Making a Murderer series. I was into true crime for long before that, but that series, when it came out on Netflix, I ended up becoming just like a deep diver. I went on Reddit. I was one of the first 50 to be in the Making a Murderer subreddit. I had connected with a ton of other posters, and we were a part of a group that was basically FOIA requesting a lot of the documents that hadn't been seen yet or were available online. And we would go through these things and analyze them and find even, say, audio interrogations of Brendan Dassey. We'd bring it up the waveform editor and we'd see clips or tampering in it. So people would be sending that stuff to the lawyers, the current lawyers, things like that. It just got me very interactive with the true crime community. Long story short, when I was younger, this is actually similar to Dave's story. I saw that on your last Living on Borrowed Crime episode. When it comes to video editing, I was sponsored for skateboarding at 13 years old. Interesting story, right?
Yeah.
And what it was, I think, for me was that I was really into making skate videos. So I would go out with my friend Mikey or just by myself in a tripod, and I would film all of these videos and just edit, send them to as many companies as I could think of, to be honest, online. And eventually there was this hippie company. They make like hemp clothing. Everything's all natural resources. They were called Mountains of the Moon. And they gave me a flow sponsorship. So what happened with that was that gave me my I got my toes wet with video editing. Yeah. And ever since then, it's just been something I always go back to. I developed a passion for it. And in grade 6, so this is even before that, in grade 6, I was animating. So what happened was I went to this art school. You had to apply. I was obsessed with acting. I wanted to be an actor. So you had to apply to this art school. And what happened was I got in, and part of the program you had to learn was animating. And it was just a very interactive computer class as one of the classes you had to take. And I ended up leaving that school after a year because you had to do dance and you had to do singing. And I liked the acting, but I started feeling a little, I guess I lost my, my confidence in those other things. It wasn't really my thing. But I ended up leaving that school and I went to another school. So in grade 7, and one of my teachers saw that I was quite ahead of the other students when it came to animation. And this was when Flash was called Macromedia Flash. It wasn't even Adobe Flash.
Oh, wow. We're going back in time.
Back in time. So this this teacher saw that I had a skill set for my age that other students didn't have. And he actually, hopefully he doesn't get in trouble for this, he went on to the school computer and burnt me Macromedia Flash for me to take home and install on my computer. So yes, so I brought it home.
You're gonna get a licensing fee. You owe a licensing fee, dude. What the hell?
Don't tell anybody. Macromedia is gone now. It's Adobe. But I guess I outed myself here. But anyways, I just practiced and practiced. I started making stick skate videos, if anybody remembers those.
Yeah, I remember like stick death theater and all that kind of stuff too.
Yep. So I started making those. I did that for years. And then I got to a certain age. I started getting fascinated by girls. And
how dare you?
My
disgusting.
My life took a hard turn. Even though, so at this point I'm sponsored for skateboarding. I'm competing locally. I never did anything like I'm assuming Dave did, where it was more global. Mine was all local within Ontario. So at this point, when I started getting, my mind was getting distracted, my eyes were wandering. I got a girlfriend, and that relationship kind of took over my hobbies, and I lost interest in competing, and I wasn't animating as much. I wasn't doing as much video production until about grade 12. So my last year of high school. To be fair, we did work on a skate video throughout all of high school, but in grade 12, I went back. I retook another class, a computer class, and I was animating something in class, and the teacher came up to me and said, "Hey, you're graduating this year. Do you want to make the graduation video?" And I said, all right, that sounds good. So he gave me a couple ideas. We bounced it off each other, and I ended up animating our school mascot going through a jungle, swimming through an ocean, then climbing a hill and looking down, and then there's the graduation ceremony, and everybody throws their hats up, and then it comes back down and says congratulations to the class of, I can't remember now at this point, but to whatever class it was. Yeah. And he liked it so much that he burnt it onto 300 DVDs or however many students it was, and gave it to everybody at prom.
Wow.
So as I'm going through life, every time I'm getting involved with editing or animating, I'm seeing appreciation for it, right? People are liking it, and I'm enjoying it. I feel the passion doing it.
Sure.
But what happened was I sort of lost that part of my life for a while, and I'm not blaming it on the relationship. I'm blaming it on hormones. But
how old were you? Sorry, how old were you?
This is throughout high school. So
okay, yeah, quite young.
Grade 12, yeah, grade 12. And so I went to college. The first time I went to college, I actually went for 3D animation and web programming. That program, though, I didn't complete because of my hormones. And I ended up taking a few years just bouncing around, being like, what do I want to do with my life? Should I chase the money, or should I chase a passion, or do I just become a laborer and work? And I ended up saying, you know what, let's try to see how much money I can make. Let's follow the money. And so I moved out west. I'm in Canada, by the way. So I moved out to Alberta, and I went on the oil field, and I did a welding apprenticeship. I don't know if you hear anything about how it is out here, or if this is just a Canadian-wide conversation, but they call people on the oil field rig pigs.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Okay. Basically, I was a city boy amongst a bunch of rig pigs. And they didn't let me live that down. I was treated not very good. I was kind of a pushover compared to these guys that were very tough. Yeah, just tougher, a lot tougher. And here I am, an artistic fellow, trying to weld.
Sounds like they were real men, you know.
Exactly.
They were men.
Manly men.
I'm a city boy. They're a manly man.
Yeah.
So I did my best. I actually did it for 3 years, but the welder that I had wouldn't give me my hours. So 3 years is all you need before you can do your journeyman. But they weren't giving me my hours. I went up to head office. They weren't helping me get my hours. And I ended up just sort of being crushed, like absolutely crushed by my experience. I'd left all my friends. I'd gone out there and tried to develop a new life, and it was in the middle of nowhere. It was in Bonnyville is what it's called, and a very, very small town, literally an oil field town. Anyways, moving on. I came back to Ontario after that experience, and I said, I love true crime, but I also love video editing. And I actually had to ponder this for a while, because I'm like, do I go to school for law? Because I do have a bit of a pretty good understanding of law. I have studied it quite a bit. So I was like, do I go to school for law, maybe become an attorney? But that amount of paperwork is exhausting. You drown. And that's not necessarily my forte. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to school for video editing, for film, and hopefully I can get my toes wet in some documentary production.
Okay.
And I did that. And the first year I started is when I started becoming obsessed with that chapter, JCS, anybody that was around at that time. And I said to myself, when I finish, I'm going to graduate this program. I'm going to edit as much as I can. I ended up becoming the primary editor for basically every project, which is, I'm so grateful for that. It gave me my practice. But I set a goal for myself. I said, I'm going to make a YouTube channel when I finish this program. And it's going to be a true crime channel, and I'm just going to chase it. Like, I'm going to see what I can do. Yeah. And I finished school, and then tragedy struck. So I had 2 losses in my family within 8 days.
Oh, geez.
It was hard. It was hard. And it was something that affected my mom and like my entire family, right? Like, it wasn't just me. It affected all of us it was very heavy. And I ended up kind of trapping myself in my room, and I just sort of escapism. Like, I just watched true crime over and over. I'd watch everything that it got me out of that mindset I was in. It kept me thinking about the future instead of thinking about my problems. And I was really passionate. So I sat myself down and I said, I can do something amazing if I try, right? Like, I think I can. And that's when I made A Dreamless Sleep. That's when I started writing the James Holmes series. And that's the series that blew my channel up. Like, I got really lucky with that series. But I started writing it, and I was pacing back and forth right here, back and forth as I'm writing. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. And and then I'd research, and you know what? I can maybe add that. I can add that. And And when that video did well, I just, it was such a, it really helped me. It helped my parents because they could see something going so incredibly. It was like, it was almost just, like I said before, a form of escapism for everybody to see something like this happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, ever since I've just sort of fallen into what I am now. Like every step that I take feels like it's because of that moment. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I can't even believe the amount of people that follow me that enjoy my content. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. So
Yeah,
that's
the amount of affirmation you get when you start out something is just sort of on a lark or just on a passion, and then you find so many people that are either of the same mind or find value in what you're doing.
exactly.
I mean, it's addictive in one way, it's affirming in another, but it's always good. Unless you're the hardest critic on yourself, which I often am, but we'll talk about that in a second. First off, thank you, Miranda Stone. Stay awake. Sounds like this passion stems from the women of your younger years. You're welcome from all women. Thank you, Miranda, very much. And also, Chelsea-Louise, missed your chance to make this episode title Stave Awake. Copyright me. Also, I see the best part of the show is here. It's Yoshi, by the way. Well, hello, Yoshi. Thank you, Chelsea-Louise, so much. Yeah, well, I wanted to sort of dive a little bit into general discussion about sort of what the title of the series dwells on. Oh, by the way, everybody, if you don't already know, in the description, I placed the links to everything I could find related to our two guests, their YouTube channels, Patreon, Twitter. Dave's comic book project is in there too. So if you have any interest in our speakers, if you don't already know them, you'll find all their stuff there. Take a look at those if you would. So yeah, as it pertains to the title of the series, like living on borrowed crime. So you guys are both in a position now where conceivably, with enough views on your videos, and granted that they're monetized, you can conceivably make a living off of this. But as I know personally, and as I'm sure you may have encountered so far, YouTube is not the most forgiving mistress when it comes to monetizing true crime content or content that could be considered controversial. So I was curious, and we'll start with Stave Awake here. That's not your name now. I'm sorry. I'm stealing it from Chelsea. Stave Awake.
I like it. I like it.
So what has your experience been so far, if any, with running into monetization issues, copyright issues, that kind of thing? And have those experiences changed the way that you script or what you decide that you will display or discuss in trying to chase monetization? Or, as some channels do, they mitigate that by having an active Patreon or some other revenue stream. So I was curious, has YouTube affected your artistic guardrails in any way?
Absolutely, it's affected my artistic side of producing. Unfortunately, there's not much I can do about that. If I want to keep bringing content, I'm bringing it at the best ability that I can, mind these guidelines. But there are so many things that I wish I could do to make my videos better. But I will say it's actually kind of ironic or coincidental that you're asking this now, because I just recently had gotten really concerned because I had 3 or 4 videos in a row hit that limited, and it wasn't that that they were like I was worried about the money, because that I'll figure it out. But when it comes to their performance and my reach as a channel, it was drastically affecting my reach. And I did what I could to get around it. So I'd even had shared some of my videos on the Jim Can't Swim subreddit, because I usually get a really good response there. But I think they're cracking down on things. So those posts got quickly removed. But I'd talked to Matt Orchard about it because he was one of the mods. So I'd asked him, like, what's going on? Like, is there something I'm doing wrong? And he said, like, maybe YouTube's punishing you. And if it is, just keep doing what you're doing, because anything from outside sources like Reddit is negligible compared to what you'll get through YouTube if you just keep going. And that's sort of my mindset. It's just grind, work within your guidelines, and put out the best that you can, yeah, within those guidelines.
How about you, Dave? Have you had to consider, maybe not censoring yourself, but couching your language? I know a lot of channels, they will not use certain words and now will say things like, this woman was assaulted, or they'll say SA instead of what the initials stand for and try to find ways around saying the exact words, or they'll bleep them out slightly or something. I know that you, especially when you're reading your To Catch a Predator chat logs, you don't hold back. So I'm guessing maybe you're not as cautious about that as maybe some other artists, but I'm just curious as if you've run into any issues with YouTube trying to penalize you effectively.
I have not, but it doesn't mean that I don't think it happens. Most of my videos have the limited monetization thing, and I find that if the video goes over 100,000 views, then it gets treated like it was a green monetization symbol.
Right.
So I haven't. I wouldn't say I've noticed, but the problem with this answer and this conversation for me is that this side of the business, we shall call it, I really don't. I do my best to keep my head out of, and that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing, because there could be patterns that are occurring there that could help me grow the channel more if I pay attention to it. But also I find that when I look at that, if I start to focus on this video is doing worse than this one, and this one is making less money than this one, then I start to get very anxious about that. And that affects everything moving forward.
Real quick, thank you, Sigrid. I just enjoy attention. Hi, Dave.
Sigrid loves attention.
Also, we have another, I saw all fuzzed out in the chat too previously, but we also have another celebrity in the chat, in human form. Hey, dude, how's it going? Hi, Scribe. Hi, Formy. How you doing? If you guys don't know about In Human Form, go check out his channel. He just had a video up regarding the Z cleaning financial scam, and prior to that, he did a video on Robert Hansen, the serial killer out of Alaska, where In Human Form is from. So he was able to actually go and film footage at the actual locations where some of the key events of the crimes took place. So go check out In Human Form's channel on YouTube as well. Hopefully have Formy back on this show in the near future as well. Yeah, it seems almost requisite now for true crime channels to have a Patreon of some kind, or if they're lucky enough to get a sponsorship from like Hunt a Killer or some other service or something.
I missed that when I was trying to answer you there. I totally skipped over that part of the question.
Okay.
That's something I think I need to focus more on my Patreon and my socials. I find myself so swamped in just research and editing, and I can't, like we were talking about earlier before the video started, even watching just TV shows or something like that. I can't even watch very elaborately written things anymore. I find myself just watching mind-numbing reality TV.
I feel you.
Honestly, like Survivor or The Challenge or shows like that are the easiest or Cops. Anything that's easy to consume is what I find myself doing. But back to the answer there is just, yeah, I think that is where most true crime creators are finding a steady platform, would be going to things like Patreon and making that a more a desired platform. Yeah,
and it really boggles me, because I mean, true crime as a genre is one of the most popular things in society, let alone YouTube, and yet YouTube seems determined, at least as far as what I can tell. I'm kind of on the outside looking in, but they seem determined to penalize people when if you're looking for now for sure. I mean, the adpocalypse was quite a thing for those that weren't experiencing it at the time. It was something to watch. I've never been all that concerned with turning my channel into a business or a money-making machine or anything, but a lot of my friends were and have been, and they were grossly affected by this. I can only imagine what it is for people who work in a genre that is, on the one hand, so popular, but on the other hand, seemingly vilified simply for being the thing that's been around forever. You would think that, me thinking that the corporate YouTube respecting its users' discretion and what kind of content they want to consume goes by the wayside. And I mean, if you wanted to set up some kind of age restriction thing or verification, whatever, for certain stuff, but still allow it to be monetized, fine. But to penalize people for making stuff that people like to watch on your platform. And especially since, obviously there are companies out there willing to monetize themselves on it with sponsorships. It's never made a whole lot of sense to me.
So I have thought about this a lot, and I agree with what you're saying. And for the most part, I think that people approach creating true crime with good intentions, but what we're dealing with this isn't like video game content where it's all fun and games or whatnot. This is real human tragedy that requires proper research. It requires proper journalism. And so I think that monetizing this is very sensitive, and that because if it, say for example, if it was easily monetized, then we would see an influx of people joining the creator pool, and not all of them are going to be good. Right now we get the best of the best because the passion brings them in, right? And
well, I mean, just as a watcher of this stuff, as soon as Jim Can't Swim took off, you saw, and I mean, this, I almost called this show, I almost called the show one of two things, either the Church of JCS or just called it JCS Inspired, because that seems to be a tag that people put onto stuff, and it helps with the algorithm. I put it on my stuff, and it seemed to take off like a rocket, and people are like, oh, well, if this person knows JCS, then maybe this is worthwhile. But I mean, in those early days, you saw a whole lot of clone channels that were, some of them were very well produced, like Mad Orchard. You have like almost professional documentaries going on. And then you had some that were just, here's a little narration from a Wikipedia article. Here's a giant block of interrogation footage without commentary. And then here's a little piece of Wikipedia narration at the end telling you how the case worked out. And even those videos were going gangbusters. You have some channels that only deal in providing raw interrogation footage, like Blue Dot or Red Tree Crime does more, a bit more commentary now than they originally did, but or Crime Circus, things like that. But yeah, no, I think the audiences are becoming more, at least sophisticated or demanding in the quality of what they're looking for. But then some people just love listening to interrogation footage sans any commentary. Like I could listen to the Russell Williams interrogation all day because it basically plays out like a 3-act play on its own, or Chris Watts or anything else. Then there's some that aren't so great.
It's not so much the channels that will come in and dump, a 3-hour interrogation. That's to a degree, it's lazy video making, but it's not really a problem. The problem is when you get some, I don't know, 16-year-old kid that doesn't really know anything about life, and they start doing improper research, or they start putting in not well thought out opinions into a section of video that should just be fact. So that's the danger of it that I find.
Well, now you have helped me out. Oh, sorry, go ahead real quick.
I was just going to say that, yeah, exactly. What you'll get is if this was really easily monetized, you'll get a lot of exploitative types of channels coming out that'll use this tragedy in a way that's, they'll glorify it, and they'll get the views, but without saying any channels or anything.
Name and shame. I'm kidding.
It already happens, to be honest with you.
It does.
Sure.
I'm working on something personally. I'll go through this quick because I know you have something to say here, but I'm working on something called Stay Awake Raw. So I'm actually in the process of getting files from the courthouses, from the public, from the public domain, and I'm going to make videos, and then I'll have Stay Awake Raw as a side channel, which I'll put the full videos from those videos.
Sure.
Does that make sense? The full content.
Yeah.
So even that, I've been questioning it, but but I think as long as there's a process that's clear and it's respectful, I think it's okay.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say is that I mean, depending on how you want to do it, I've always appreciated the idea that there are channels out there like Blue Dot that just put up, here's interrogation footage we found, and as long as there's some ability for another creator to come along and say, maybe I'll tell this story as its own video and I'll use this footage, as long as you give credit to the person who acquired it. And I've seen a lot of places like put their own little watermark on footage that they themselves acquired, just to make sure that if somebody does end up using it, whether they like it or not, there's going to be some attribution. But I've always liked the community idea of sharing raw interrogation footage, 911 calls and things like that, so different people can make use of it kind of in the public domain. Because I got a copyright claim on interrogation footage I used for one of my 3 true crime videos. Like TMZ now makes all the money off of that video for some reason. Like TMZ claimed the interrogation footage I used for that thing.
Free to Kill?
This was Free to Kill. Yeah.
I don't know. They shouldn't be able to do that. That's if it's public domain, it cannot belong to anybody.
It's a thing. It's like, I don't know if it is public domain because the policies of Las Vegas, where the video was taken from, maybe they paid for it. Maybe they paid some kind of licensing. It all depends on the individual jurisdiction. I don't know. Either way, I wasn't trying to make money off of it, so I didn't really care. Yeah.
Based on my education on that matter, they can, unless there's intellectual property on that video. So if they've edited it, added music to it, added maybe some visual effects, that interrogation footage belongs to the public domain. So you can dispute or appeal those, but if they're maybe don't risk it.
Well, you see, just disputing it. Just a quick aside: disputing things in YouTube for appeals and things like that, you have to, especially when you're trying to counter a copyright claim. You either have to be on assured legal footing and or be comfortable with revealing your personal information to a complete stranger. And since my concern with my channel is not so much, like I say, monetizing the videos, I'm not that concerned. But what I wanted to bring up is, and Dave sort of alluded to this, and something I wanted to ask. I may make it a standard question to ask people in the future as well. I don't know if you guys saw or know about the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix. Okay, I'm not going to go into the series itself, but the aftermath of the series and the accusations of glorifying Dahmer and sort of sexifying him and all this other stuff, it brought up a phrase that I don't know that I'd heard before, but it kind of makes sense as soon as you say it: ethical true crime. True crime that is making a conscious effort to not be exploitative necessarily, to tell the facts as they were, but also give due respect to the victims and the enormity of what happened. And there's one episode in that series where it tells the story effectively from the perspective of one of the victims throughout the entire narrative. Now, if I say ethical true crime, what does that mean to you, each of you, as you're making your videos? What does that speak to the way that you think about how you tell your stories? I'll start with Dave's Lemonade.
It's a big question.
It's the only kind I ask.
The big kind. It's something I think about a lot, and it's something that I was actually talking with a few people about recently, and it is a struggle that I face on a day-to-day, because I make money from these videos, and I approach them from a good place, I believe. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm making money off of tragedy. And so I battle with this on a day-to-day basis. That I always say, if I ever, this is going to be long-winded, I apologize. If I ever were to make an enormous amount of money, then I would take what I need to survive. I would give the rest to the victim. Whoever the victim was in this case, I would give it to them. If the victim is no longer alive, I would try to reach out to family, and I would say, this is yours, or where do you want it to go? That's the only way that I would be able to live with myself if I was making enormous amounts of money from this. But I don't make enormous amounts of money. I make enough for me to survive. And so this is where I sit on the line. To answer your question, is for me, when I work on these videos, I need to approach it from a position of, let's say it was somebody that I love that was the victim. And if it was my mother, my father, my friend, whoever, let's say they were brutally murdered, and all of a sudden I'm online one day, I'm on YouTube, and a video pops up, and it's documenting the tragedy of my mother's death. And I might choose to watch that. Let's say if I were to watch this video, by the end of the video, the feeling that I would want from it is, at the very least, that the creator cared. They felt
Mhm.
who that person was. And that is
Spot
a
on.
very, it's a very vague thing to say, right? Because we all have people that we love, and it doesn't matter what words that you use. It doesn't matter what words either of you use or anyone listening. You will never be able to convey how that person feels to another person. You can say, I love my mother. She did this. Meant this to me. She yada, 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 and go on for the next half an hour about what a beautiful person. I will never convey to you what the beauty of her. And so if I'm watching a video and the creator at least attempted to understand who she was,
Right.
then I'm okay with that video. I appreciate it being made. I appreciate that being documented. I understand that journalism needs to happen. I understand that these stories need to be told. And at the very least, if the creator attempted to feel who that person was that died, then beautiful, make that video. So that's where I sit on it when I'm making the videos.
That's a great answer.
Thank you. The only way I was able to come to this answer succinctly is because I already fleshed this out over the span of like 45 minutes a couple of days ago.
Fair. You can really feel that when you watch your videos, though, Dave. I personally, you can feel how much you care. I've sometimes even the way you word things, you'll really dance around it before you get to the direct information. But you do it in a way that makes you, as a viewer, I just, you could tell you care. There's a lot of empathy for who might be watching. And I get a bit of something I call post anxiety. So I'll be trying to keep up with my schedule, and sometimes I might miss some details that I wish I'd put in later. You seem to you put that time into every video, and that's noticeable. And that's commendable as a creator, in my opinion.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Real quick,
that.
along those lines, Carrie and Storm, thank you so much. You guys aren't making money off of the tragedy. You're making money off of making the information around a tragedy digestible and entertaining. Thank you, Carrion.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that.
Yeah, speaking of post anxiety, and I know I'm wavering here a little bit, but I did notice something when I was looking back over your content. STAYAWAKE. We gotta find a shorter version of this. It sounds so awkward.
Stave.
Stave. There you go. Well, Stave.
I like it.
So, when being an English major, my pedigree has sort of galvanized me the notions of revise, and a masterpiece is never completed, only abandoned. And I've noticed on your channel, you have full correction videos that you'll post of essentially the same thing that you did before. And maybe the timestamp is all of like a second or two off. But I assume that, like me, if you go back over your own work and you spot something that you got wrong or some goof or something, it drives you up the wall. But on that point, but also I'm curious, why leave up both versions? So you leave up both the original and the corrected one, like Elaine Campione. When I saw that appear on your channel again not too long ago, I thought to myself, wait, didn't he already do this? That was the first video I ever saw. And then, so I'm just curious about that.
It's just to direct traffic. Also, there's a lot of things that can go on with the algorithm when you start deleting videos. And I've seen it affect my channel directly, where I had to take down, I went back through a sort of like Good Housekeeping, where I went back and I got rid of some of my videos that might have been dancing on the guidelines a little bit. And I was a little worried once I started to grow. So making those changes affected my reach. Again, you'd see my impressions for each video going from 30,000 or going from millions to 30,000. And it's like, what's happening here? Right. And it's because they're seeing a drop in your overall views. and it directly infects the algorithm, the way that you get impressions, you get reach. So I like to leave it up, and then if people see that the old version, I link to the new version so that, like, first of all, I'll say this: the best assistant editors that I've ever had are the people commenting on my videos. They will
No
notice
doubt.
every single thing that I miss.
Yes.
So I like to take those comments. If I go back and I see that that person's absolutely right, I messed up, I make that list. I'll usually put it in my description of the video. And then come time when I have a little bit of spare time, I'll pump that video back out with the corrections. And then I like to link the older video that's performing really well to the new video so that it's like, I'm not neglecting this. I know I was wrong, but here is the corrected, updated version.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I've had audience members who have, and it has nothing to do with true crime specifically, but I've had people who have gone over the subject matter I've looked at and written practical full essays in either rebuttal of what I had to say or some kind of companion piece to the subject matter that was put there because they're more informed on it than I am. And I'll just be like, I just need to pin this comment and leave it there because this is basically just extra content. I love my audience because, you know, when they care about something, and they'll let you know whether you did good, bad, or otherwise. It's always great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I haven't.
Oh yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, you don't go. Sorry. Go ahead.
I haven't made a habit out of pinning the comments that seem to attack me if I do something wrong, but I will if anybody says anything that's even a little sassy, but I'm absolutely in the wrong, and I see that. I'll love that comment. I'll even respond to it the best I can. It's one of those things that nobody's perfect, and this is a very difficult genre, difficult niche to get every single fact correct.
Right.
But as long as you put the time in and you do the research, you can get as correct as you feel possible. And then to have these people commenting and correcting these things, to me, it's like constructive criticism. And if I missed it, thank you for helping me at least address it. Right. Like, so
right.
That's the way I look at that type of response.
Yeah.
That's a very good answer. I couldn't have said that better myself.
Thank you.
Yeah. Handling criticism, I mean, of one form or another, seems to be a lost art amongst a lot of people these days, where anything that comes your way, that somebody looks at you sideways, suddenly like your whole world breaks apart. And I really wonder sometimes with some grown adults who freak out over like one sidewise comment, like, how did you survive junior high? Like, I mean, were you ever picked on as a kid or anything? You ever learned how you have things run off your back or something, or really judge like what's worth listening to and what isn't? Just, I know that has nothing to do with true crime, but sometimes I just kind of like lose my brain. Like, I mean, maybe I benefited from being picked on and bullied as a kid or something. I just like grew a tougher skin about such things. I don't know.
Recently, this is just a funny reference, kind of. It just reminded me. I didn't realize that Dave had pumped out a Darrell Brooks video that was 3 hours long.
Oh, dude, I watched him make it. I mean, he's got these live streams going where he's live editing these things now. Have you seen this?
I missed it. Oh, I see that he's doing that now, but I missed this video. I usually look around in the top creators, at least doing the similar style as me, to make sure I'm not being redundant. I'm not just like, hey, this is the same thing you heard yesterday. You want to hear it again? Like, I'm doing my best to research that these cases aren't covered to the extreme.
Right.
And with Dave, I check his channel quite often, and I hadn't noticed that he made this really long, elaborate Darrell Brooks case. And so I'm working on one which I was so proud of. I still am. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm very
You
proud
should
of
be proud of it. Anyone who gets through that trial, which I'm certain you're doing, you should be fucking proud of yourself.
He is exhausting. Once I finished that video, I was like, I'm never looking at Darrell Brooks ever again.
Yeah.
And that's it. But anyways, I ended up looking at him again when I watched your video and Matt Ocean's recently.
Yeah.
But to say the least, the constructive criticism that I got on that video was, wow, you should be more like Dave's Lemonade. He does this. And I'm like, And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like,
Oh.
wait, Dave covered this? And then
No.
I go and check, and I'm like, you know what? Like, to each their own. Your coverage was amazing. I
can't wait to see yours.
I hope you like it.
Is it up now or no?
Yeah, it's
No.
up. It's up.
Where is it?
It's
I'm looking at your channel now.
Yeah, see, it's really interesting to see how.
I got it. Okay, I'm gonna check this out.
there?
I'm gonna check this out. Yeah.
No, I don't know if you guys have
totally
noticed
different
this.
take.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think you guys have noticed this, but like oftentimes I'll see like True Crime Creator 1 will put up a video about this murder, and I would have thought, well, I've never heard of that one before. That's kind of interesting. And then within like 5 days, other creators have those videos about the same story, even though they could not have been just put those out in the last 24 hours. They had to have been looking at them. And I realized, oh, that trial just concluded, so they have an end to that story, and people are keeping eyes on this. And so something else I wanted to ask, because I've seen some other channels do this. Obviously, you have instances where you have a crime that is unsolved, like a well-known unsolved crime, let's say the Delphi murders or something, or like maybe Zodiac, or if you're going back, or something like that. But what are your thoughts on covering a case that is still in progress? It's not unsolved per se. Like I saw, and Netflix did this themselves, they put out a big documentary on the Murdaugh murders before the trial had even concluded. What are your like? Is there any pressure? Do you feel any pressure to try to cover something that's hot, like right now, even though if it's not resolved and it's still in process, or you're going to do a part 1 and maybe do a follow-up later, or do you feel more comfortable like waiting to get the full story before doing a video? I'll start with Stave.
Sorry, I was answering that. I'm jumping ahead of you there.
No, you're the one I was going to go to.
Okay, so basically, I did Gabby Petito within 2 days. The second I followed it, from the second it went hot.
Yes.
And I was in all of the Reddits, all the Reddit forums. I was in everything, just taking notes. And I just started grinding immediately. And I was almost too quick, because I had to use a redacted version of the police video where like they get pulled over. Luckily, I was able to get a very accurate timeline, and my details were very accurate, luckily. But after that experience, and that video did well, but after that experience, I am very hesitant now. If it's ongoing, like, to be honest, the Idaho 4.
Yes.
I would love to cover that case, but it's so open-ended, and even though there's a lot of damning evidence so far and content that's come out about Brian Kohberger, there's not enough for me to want to put his name directly on this. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could jump the gun, and then in court, the guy has video of him streaming playing Call of Duty while the murders happened. So he ends up being completely innocent. So I just feel that it is touchy depending on the case, but for the most part, I avoid them with, I just avoid the hell out of them.
All right. Before I get Dave's reaction, and speaking of the Idaho 4, just as a plug for another content creator who I hope someday to have on the show, if you look up The Disturbing Truth, the YouTube channel The Disturbing Truth, which is done by a guy named Mr. Black Pasta, he does excellent documentary. I don't know how else to describe it. He is a one-man professional documentary machine. If you like really in-depth, and especially in his visuals, musical choices, and he has one of those perfect voices for talking about true crime. Look up The Disturbing Truth, and he just did a breakdown of everything that is currently known about the Idaho 4. I think it was called something to the effect of the sliding glass door or something like that. And he interviews people, or he's gotten information sideways to people who are involved in the case, or like friends of friends and that kind of thing. Excellent work. Can't recommend it more highly. But going back to the question, Dave, you generally have done stuff that has concluded, like you've looked at completed trials or trials in process and things most recently, or To Catch a Predator stories, which have more or less been wrapped up. now maybe my memory's failing me, but have you or would you consider doing a case that is still in process and not yet complete?
Pardon me. The answer is I would consider it. I would consider everything, but I don't believe I would ever do it, because when I approach these videos, I have to do it from the perspective of what do I want to watch. And I personally don't watch any videos that don't have a conclusion. If it's like a missing person's case or an unsolved mystery, it frustrates me.
Sure.
I don't like watching those. Even I think This Is Monsters, when I used to watch a lot of true crime back in the day. This Is Monsters, whenever it would come to his videos about unsolved murders, I would skip those videos. Or if I was driving and it was on an autoplay, and I would be listening to the video, and then by the time it gets to the end of the video, I realized that there is no conclusion to this, I would be very frustrated. I'd feel like I just wasted that last half hour. So I don't think I would do it. I don't think that I would work on a case.
Another good point. It doesn't feel finished when there's no ending.
Unless that's, I mean, so depending on the narrator and how they're telling the story, that sense of frustration could be, I mean, a part of the experience of listening to that story, especially if it's one where it's an unsolved case or the cops mess something up, or, you know, like we just don't know. That could also sort of be a reflection of, I mean, just in a mild way, the people involved in the case themselves not having a conclusion. So I kind of, if I know ahead of time this is an unsolved case, or this is a cold case that remains unsolved, I know ahead of time, it's like, okay, I know what I'm getting into. If it's a case that's still in process, like it hasn't even gone to trial yet, or the trial will take place later this year, like then I go like,
just wait.
Yeah, I just gotta wait, I guess. Yeah.
But like you said, the disturbing truth, right? He's covering cases that are maybe not be solved. So there's people out there that are doing it, and they're doing a good job of it. So I don't really feel like my voice would be able to bring much to that. And,
and by the way, this isn't an indictment of people who do like, this is a hot case and here's what we know so far. I was just curious because I see some channels doing it and some channels completely avoiding it, and you know, they have access to effectively the same information. So I was just curious what you guys thought about it.
Yeah, I haven't. Sorry.
I would say that that's more of like a reporting style of true crime. So they're just sort of, it's almost like news reporting, right? They're just creating like, this is where the case is right now video. And they can keep going back to it, as opposed to making a full true crime documentary. I haven't seen The Disturbing Truth though, so I can't really speak for them. But I've seen like Abe Huncho channels like that are kind of, they're just reporters of the facts.
Yeah. Like I was talking to Stave before the stream about true crime content creators, generally speaking, and I mean generally, there's some crossover. Generally, in my perspective, fall into two categories of presentation: journalistic and personable, or conversational, I guess I should say. So like journalistic might be more Jim Can't Swim. There's some analysis there and everything, but it's very, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, here's the interrogation, here's what happened. Whereas you have someone like That Chapter who really speaks to his audience in a very direct and sort of communal way, friendly way, you know, hey, how's it going? Here's a story I'm going to tell you. And I noticed that part of his style and part of his charm is that sometimes he stumbles over his own dialogue as he's speaking, but he's just talking to you. He's not making a report, so you sort of forgive that, and you have that sort of relationship with his personality outside of just, these are the facts, ma'am, kind of thing. And I obviously there's some crossover here and there depending on the creator, but that's kind of how I see channels and how I sort of feel about them when I'm listening to them. Is it straight journalistic documentarian, or is it like a friend telling you a story? That's sort of the feelings I get.
Hey, I was sorry.
No, go ahead. I've been talking a lot.
Well, I just want to mention something before I forget. You know how you said stave. I'm going to use the stave as well. Do you know how you said that you were going to go and obtain these raw files and whatnot?
Yep.
There is a channel, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Code Blue Cam.
Okay.
And I'll get it up now. 1 second.
Oh, is this all the police body cam stuff?
It's all police body cam, and listen to the
Yeah.
description here, right? Code Blue Cam provides unbiased and authentic footage of incidents captured on body cams. We believe this footage can be used as an educational and informational guide for viewers to analyze and evaluate situations. The videos on this channel have been obtained through public record requests. Many incidents may require a fee associated with the request and take several days to process prior to being attained. This channel is not run or affiliated with any law enforcement agency. And then at the very end, there's a little bit more, but at the very end, it says the featured content is not intended to be violent or glorify violence in any way. We are sharing the footage strictly for the purpose of news and reporting. Anyway, I'm bringing this up because I think your idea is fantastic, and I think that you should do it because this channel has 1.4 million subs, and each video like if we go to their videos, the latest one 600,000, before that 1.3 million, 1.4 million. Yeah, so in the last 12 days they've acquired almost 3 million views, right? And even if those videos are limited monetization, like, there's your problem solved. So
Absolutely.
I think it's a really good idea, and I wanted to mention that because if it's sort of something that you're on the fence about and you're kind of thinking about, like, do that now.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Chelsea-Louise says, thieves, a bunch of thieves. Who are you referring to? Did I miss something?
I don't know, Chelsea. Chelsea gets ranting about things sometimes. Is
that an inside joke or something, or is there a?
It might be, but I forget a lot. Chelsea, please explain. Tell us what's going on.
You don't need to super chat again, Chelsea, if you want to give some clarifications, because I want to make sure I'm not. As far as I know. Okay, wait.
Stealing Stave. Sorry, Chelsea.
Yes. Stave. Okay. Well.
My bad. I'm sorry. We will credit you.
I will edit the description to put Stave originates from Chelsea-Louise for perpetuity.
Yeah.
If that's okay, or if you don't want, if you really don't want it to be used anymore. Now, in all seriousness, we'll find something else. That's fine. I don't mean to take your credit. Okay, she's laughing out loud now, so that's probably a good sign. All right, so I will put Stave credit Chelsea-Louise in the description of the video for perpetuity, just to make sure. Because man, crediting copyright these days, you got to be very careful with that kind of thing. And thank you, Miranda Stone, again, to pay for Chelsea's copy strike. Thank you, Miranda. I appreciate you handling the financial back end on Chelsea's copyright claims. By the way, I just wanted to ask, I know this is true of Dave, but Stave, are you a one-man show, or do you have any kind of support staff of some kind to help you out with your videos?
I'm a 95% one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
I have an assistant, basically. One of my buddies, I went to school with him. So I went to film school with him. And he's working in the production industry right now, but he'll basically help me do research, and on occasion he'll help me with subtitling videos. That's literally it. I tried to do a little bit more than that and get more people involved, but once it becomes just too much of a cluster expletive.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
don't worry. This stream is not monetized. You don't have to worry about that stuff. I'm not concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, this is open conversation, however you want to be.
It's a cluster.
There you go. Good job. There you go. There you go. All Canadians be proud.
I'm a bit of a control freak myself when it comes to my videos. So getting other people in it makes me feel a bit, I don't know what's going on here.
Even with the subtitling, sometimes I'm like, why did he do that? Like, but I roll with it, right? And it's one of those things that now that I've upped my release rate to one a week, I sometimes just have to roll with it. I hope to get to a point where I can drop the JCS inspired and maybe push it back to every 10 days. So I have a little more time to perfect each video.
one a week is wild, man. It is wild. Like
yeah,
you
it is.
It's a lot.
I had myself on the one a week for a bit there, but you're to keep it up, you must be working a lot.
Oh, yeah, I'm drowning a little bit, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it at the same time. So, like we were saying earlier, I don't really consume too much elaborate, like well-written content nowadays because I can't take that anymore. The only time that I'm absorbing things is when I'm sitting right here and I'm back and forth writing notes and
yeah. After doing a little bit of editing and research and everything else, like just for anybody else who's new to the show and everything, I have done 3, count them, 3 true crime videos just to challenge myself to see if I could do it, and I gained such a wider appreciation for what guys like Dave and Stave do, because just the amount of research. Like I wanted to make something that I would have liked to have watched myself in a quality that I would appreciate. And I think, knock on Formica, I think I got there. But in the process of it, I really understood a lot more of just how much effort, both, talent wise, time wise, and also just sort of mental endurance wise, to dig into some of this terrible stuff and try to form it into a narrative that you could produce for someone else to watch. And in that vein, I wanted to ask, are there elements to a case, whether it's the circumstances, the characters, or the available footage that you sort of require of yourself before you'll take on a project? Because like you mentioned This Is Monsters earlier, most of his videos are just talking. It's just narration with pictures and stuff. And I try to think about the Herculean effort I'd have to go through and trying to edit my own voice to that extent just drives me up the wall with just imagining it. So does a case you look at, does it require additional media for you to feel comfortable hanging a narrative around it? Or do you think you could do one where you had nothing but maybe a photograph or two? Or is there something else that you look for, Stave? I'll start with you.
For me, it has to be, I need good sources. So if I can get my hands on actual court documents, trial documents, anything like that, that is like, it's official, that is the number one thing that makes the video that much easier to produce, to accurately write for. Or even if I have to contact like the public records office and just try to get some type of documentation, anything helps. In terms of video though, yes, I personally need either interrogation footage, body cam footage, phone calls, or a combination of the 3, or trial footage, like a copious amount of trial footage. If I can't get my hands on any of those, I tend to try to avoid the case. I have, though, done videos that are more similar to This Is Monsters, where they're just narrative driven. Like, which video there is a good example. My, what's his name? Phil Hartman.
Yes.
Phil Hartman. That video is nearly all narrative. I have a couple clips from The Simpsons as Troy McClure. I have a couple things like that, but they're all shorter than 10 seconds. So for the most part, I have 25 minutes of me rambling on about this guy's career and then how Bryn, his wife, how everything happened, right? How it all played out. And I personally don't find those videos as interesting, or at least as entertaining to watch. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate those videos, because I really do. I connect to every case that I cover. There's a reason I pick them. It's because there's something there that I feel like there's some type of connection or understanding. But for the most part, yeah, I need video footage, audio footage, something to help move the video along.
Dave, I think your entire library is based on footage from some place or another. Would you consider doing, I mean, you have done effectively narrative only videos with just reading off the chat logs of like Lorne Armstrong and so on. So I suppose in some way you have done that, but as a regular course of your business, would you consider doing a story where you had little to no extra media to add to the narrative?
Similar to Stave, I do have a couple that are like that, but I don't know if we talked about this last time, so I'll make it quick if we have. For me, the prerequisite is court documents, trustworthy sources, and of course trial footage, because I'm really diving into the trial thing. But in terms of how I pick those trials, it's very loose. I'll have a bunch of trials and I'll go through a couple of testimonies from each trial, and whichever one I feel like I want to learn more about, then that's the trial that I'll pick.
Yeah.
But I also wrote something down before. I didn't want to forget this, but sorry, I was thinking about this other than the answer to that question. Apologies, Scribe. But you know how before, Steve, you were saying that you're drowning in the work from the 1 week cycle.
Yeah.
I thought of something funny because I cut my cycle back so that I could put more effort into the videos, and I thought maybe if I do a slower release cycle, I can put more effort in, I can be happier with my research, and so I have been doing that, and my release cycle is so slow now. I wish I could get it further, but I still feel like I'm drowning, but probably not as hard as you. Anyway, every video I release, I always still get the criticism of stuff that I've missed. And I'm like,
oh yeah, of course,
whether I'm doing it, pumping them out each week, or whether I'm taking that time, that we always miss something, don't we? We always miss something.
We're imperfect by nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, it almost feels like there could be an underground fact checker market for true crime channels to go to and say, hey, I'm doing a video on this thing, and if you've already done the research on things, do you have a file you can sell me or something like that I can use to just as the documentation already set up for me?
Oh god, that'd be brilliant.
That's what I was attempting to do for a while there, and that's what my assistant is kind of doing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll find the case. I'll say, it looks like this should be available. I'll even contact the public records office myself. But I still need somebody to put the timeline together so that I know for a fact there's things I'm not missing.
Sure.
And that's what he's good for. That's so far, that's been a blessing for me. So at least keeping up with this weekly cycle, that's I recommend it if you have anybody available to help you out.
The timeline is brilliant.
Yeah. In my third video, Free to Kill, the timeline was the biggest hurdle to cover because so the guy Alonso, I'm suddenly forgetting his last name. Anyway, the criminal profiled in Free to Kill, the stories on him were so sporadic and so all over the place that I had to okay, this article was published on this date, and I'd put the URL on a text document and just start putting them in chronological order. And then I'd go through each article individually and say, okay, these are the facts I gained from this article. And then from that same incident covered by a different news source, they'd have additional details that the other news source didn't even mention, or whole crimes that weren't even part of the narrative before then. And you just start having to make this giant puzzle out of it. And absolutely. It was very satisfying. It was very satisfying when I got done with it, because I thought to myself, I think this video is going to be probably the most comprehensive retelling of events than any other particular individual source out there. But it is just an absolute mountain to climb with some of these cases. I can only imagine what it is for you guys.
That's how you want to feel, though, when you're getting to the end and you're feeling like this has to be the most comprehensive coverage. That means you've been working hard and you've been going through these sources, enough to get to that point, to get to that feeling. And me personally, something took me a while to start doing this. Google has the ability to set dates, so you can custom range.
Yes. Yep.
So if you're looking for news pertaining to a specific moment in your story, in your script, you can set that dates because your date range, and you search for what you're looking for. You'll have you'll be able to find the news footage. You'll be able to find the and anything that's been released publicly at that point in time, and it'll help you with the writing process.
The other thing that I would recommend people do if they're looking at articles is to, especially if it's an article dated on, December 22nd, 2005 or something, always double check just for edification's sake on the Wayback Machine to see how many times that article's been edited, how it looked like when it was first reported, what they might have added since then or corrected. Because even a piece of information like it was originally believed that X, but as more information came out, it was this. That could be an extra element to your telling of how the story evolved in the media or in the public consciousness as well, because there's a lot of extra information hidden in old versions of articles that might be interesting.
That's really interesting. I never thought of using Wayback Machine. That's really good
because
too.
it's particularly interesting when a publication will have a headline that reads something completely outlandish, and then later they'll have to like kind of retract it or change the verbiage because they got something wrong or they jumped the gun or something. Sometimes there has been issues with that. Those generally apply more to like political stories or breaking news kind of stuff where they react to the initial reporting and then they have to sort of walk themselves back. But it might also apply to some cases depending on how high profile they are.
Dave, I'm sure you go through this all the time. Something oh geez, I just completely lost my train of thought.
No.
That's okay. I've got one if you need.
Yeah, go for it.
It's so funny because I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say, I'm sure you go through this all the time. But
I remember.
Okay, go you first because I remember mine.
So you'll be researching and you'll find an article with the exact title that you're looking for, something that you're like, oh, this is what I was wondering. Like, which date did the trial begin? Which date did he testify? Something along these lines, and it'll say, oh, I don't know. It'll be very specific to exactly what you want. Then you'll go to the article, and the article will have nothing to do with what you're seeing in the Google results.
Yeah.
So what Scribe is saying here is if you can get this access, I haven't really used Wayback too much, but now I'm starting to be curious, as if you can go back to when the article was written.
That's very interesting.
Right. So now I'm wondering if that's something we can do, but that was just,
I'm certain that's what's going on because it happens to me all the time. There'll be an article and what about the articles that have blockers on them? Like, you've reached your 3 article limit.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that stuff. That like, here's the paywall. Like, oh, dang. And of course, it's always going to be some local news source where they've got the insight into the thing. Like it happened in Jacksonville, Florida. And this one little newspaper has the guy that was in the courthouse at the time. But if you're not subscribed to that one paper, like, dang it.
I've got a workaround for you all. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's a workaround, right? Let's just say you don't have anyone else around. Let's just say it's just you and just your phone. So what I've found is that let's say the site says you can only go 3 articles max, and then I've reached my 3 articles on the computer. So then I open my phone and then I've reached the 3 articles on my phone, and then I'm screwed because I don't have any other option. This is a workaround. It sucks, but it's a workaround. Back up your phone, erase it.
Oh, wow.
Set it up as a new phone. Don't use the backup, and then you have 3 more articles to go through.
Oh, Dave, I'm sure there's a better way than that, man.
There is. I mean, you could use VPN. You can find people.
There's a browser called it's not this one here. Not Brave. There's another browser that I have. There's another browser I have. I can't figure out which one.
Yeah, there's browsers that have like incognito modes where you can kind of like.
Not even just that. You can set it so that every time you close it, it deletes everything, and then when you restart again, it's like you're in a fresh VPN or a fresh.
Oh, okay.
Oh, very nice. That's
gotcha.
very nice.
I've been using that to find some video footage because that same thing happens. But I will say this: I just recently I was going through my banking, and I'm like, "What is this charge?" And it was for the Delaware Journal. What? And it was like $25 or $35, and it was for the past 3 months. For the past 3 months, I'm like, "What is this?" And I couldn't figure out which email I used, so I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Turns out when I was researching Darrell Brooks, I signed up for a free trial so I could do this. And then it
lapsed.
automatically signed me up for
automatically.
Unbelievable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
They got me.
Real quick, thank you, Miranda Stone. Once again, both Daves. What justification do you think creators, including you, have when videos channels are tagged with psychology and analysis? So thank you so much, Miranda. Real quick, everybody. Yeah, we have the last 15 minutes before we start wrapping up. So now is decidedly question and answer time. So if you have questions for Dave or Stave, put them into the chat now. I'll be paying attention closely to that, and I'll just pop them up there. They don't need to be super chats. This is open territory. So if you have a question for our my guests, by all means, throw them up there. But yeah, the first one from Miranda Stone. What justification do you think creators, including you, have when video channels are tagged with psychology and analysis?
Before we answer this question, I have one question to fire back. How do you check the tags of a channel, or are you asking that it's a self-tag channel, like say psychology is in the title, or like are you talking about a tag that we have given ourselves, or are you talking about a tag that maybe the YouTube algorithm has placed on it that is not
Oh, well, I mean, there's some channels that call themselves, like, just an example, Matt Orchard, crime and psychology, right? Something like that.
Crime and society.
Crime and society, sorry.
Mine's crime and psychology.
Crime and psychology. Okay, so that's a good one for you. What do you think justifies saying that you have a psychological bent to your
so that's the tag we're
content?
talking. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me in particular, I have two college classes of psychology under my belt. It's nothing extremely elaborate. I'm nowhere near the JCS level, at least from what I can tell. And I do use, especially when writing, some of the resources, like some of my professors I have contacted throughout the writing process. So for me, I've taken beginner psychology and fundamentals. I began intermediate in my bachelor program, but I'm right now on a break from my bachelor program. So I haven't finished that class yet. But there is I do have some background with psychology, and I do have resources that I sort of double check my writing with.
Okay.
For my answer would be, well, it's you've got psychology in your title and you're studying psychology, so that is a perfectly good justification right there. I think I don't put it in my channel because I don't have a background in studying psychology, so I wouldn't put it in mine because I don't want to mislead people in that direction. But I also think that it is okay for people to put psychology in the tag, because people don't need a degree to discuss psychology. People don't need a degree to have an interest in psychology. I've had conversations with psychology grads that have been terrible. And I've had conversations with people, when I mean terrible, I mean that they're maybe closed-minded. They may be, for whatever reason, it's just not a interesting conversation. But then there's other people that don't have degrees that I would have some form of psychological conversation with, or a conversation discussing psychology that is fascinating. So sorry, again, we're going to get long-winded. Let's say, for example, I've got one person in particular I'm thinking of who does have a psychology degree, and I'll ask them questions and I'll be interested in it. So it's not me trying to be their equal. I want to learn from them and I want to talk to them and learn. And they have, what they're telling me is either they're very bad at retelling facts,
regurgitating.
It's just a bad conversation. Whereas, anyway, you get my point. So what I think is, if a channel is going to put it in their title and they don't have the background in psychology, then I would be expecting from them to have some sort of psychological breakdown or some sort of discussion in their videos about what's going on there. So that's my justification.
Okay. Yeah, I think analysis is probably the lowest bar to jump, because anybody can analyze whatever to whatever extent they have. There are some channels that will make it very explicit, like I think it's Explore With Us. I could be mistaken, so if somebody wants to correct me, I think it's either Explore With Us or maybe Beyond Evil, because their narrators always confuse me. But in some videos, before the interrogation footage begins, the narrator will say something to the effect, "This interrogation footage has been analyzed by a lawyer and a psychologist with X number of years, etc." So,
Iwu.
is that Iwu? Okay, I figured it was Iwu. I just like some of those very golden-throated baritone narrators between channels. Sometimes I get a little confused. But yeah, so sometimes that assurance is made, so you at least have some idea. Okay, a professional has looked at this and advised on the script or something. But yeah, as far as like saying psychology, I would hope that the person involved, at least in the scripting or the viewing of the material and then helping with the script, has some actual background in psychology. But do I need that? Is that false advertising elsewise? I guess, to each their own, because ultimately it comes down to how your perspective and how you decide to assess things, whether you're a trained psychologist or not. But I think it adds credibility if you actually are a psychologist or have that background.
This goes back to what I was talking about before, where if the genre was easily monetizable, we would get a lot of people who come in who claim to be things and they're not those things. And it's rife for that. That this genre is rife for that. So
Dr. Dave's Lemonade.
Absolutely.
There you go.
You'd get it.
Well, yeah. If I've learned one thing from my time looking at videos of different quote unquote professionals comporting themselves to be or otherwise, if somebody says I'm a doctor, my first question is, doctor of what?
Yeah.
Because if you're a doctor of basket weaving, it's like, that's great. Why are you talking about video? Why are you talking about the video game industry or something? It's just anyway.
Yeah. Dr. Dre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't deny the credentials. At this point, I'm sure he's been given a doctorate from some school or another, so he can actually call himself a doctor.
Before we wrap up that topic there, that question.
Sure.
I just want to say, even with my videos, I am still skeptical about how far I want to dive into the psychological analysis.
Sure.
You'll notice with my older videos, I actually did it a lot more because I was still in those classes. So
I was looking at that.
I had more access to the resources. I've sort of slowly been distancing myself from doing too much psychological analysis until I go back to school. But for now, I think I've found a good balance with my understanding. Some people also, I didn't talk about the other channels. Some channels can be self-taught, where they've researched themselves and they have a very good understanding. And that's where it's sort of hard to say which channels they are allowed to use that tag, when you never know that this self-taught person could be smarter than the psychologist you had to see last year, right? Like you never know. So on my first crime video, my disclaimer was, before I got into the interrogation footage, I said, I am not a psychologist. However, I do own a couch. Yeah, exactly. And so everything that comes after this is just my layman's opinion and analysis of this and everything else, because there's no denying, like, if you listen to someone and you have an opinion on it, and you can sort of, if you're able to empathize or relate whatever information you have to that interrogation footage, to whatever, just from common human experience, as long as you preamble that with something to the effect of, this is just me talking. This is not a professional opinion. I've never spoken to the suspect. I've never spoken to the families, but I can imagine, as long as you put something in there that's sort of like, most true crime guys are never going to have an opportunity to talk to the criminal. Most true crime guys are not going to be professional psychologists. It'd be interesting to see a professional psychologist with their own well-done YouTube channel at the same time doing true crime. I don't know if I'm sure there's one out there somewhere. But JCS feels like it, but it's hard to tell.
But see, right? JCS is a team, right? There's a whole team behind them. Yeah, it's a team of guys.
But we don't know for certain, do we?
No, well, we know.
We know?
Yeah, they have some videos that show the entire group of them. There's about 7 people. I don't know the credentials. I've seen speculation on the credentials, but based on how well their analysis is, it at least puts me in that boat where I'm going to say they're allowed. They can say psychology as much as they want.
Real quick. So we have another celebrity in the chat aside from All Fuzzed Out and in human form. Midnight's Edge After Dark, who I assume is Tom Connors, but it could be anybody on the team. True crime change with Dirty Harry, believe it or not. I would love to know what you mean by that, Midnight's Edge. If you guys don't know about Midnight's Edge, they do amazing documentaries and breakdowns of genre Hollywood scandals and the comings and goings of entertainment and pop culture media. So go check out Midnight's Edge. I did a stream with Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge along with Script Doctor going over a hypothetical Nightmare on Elm Street sequel this past Halloween.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun. Oh yeah, it's Tom. Well, hey Tom, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. Well, if you can expand quickly on what you mean by the Dirty Harry thing, I'd appreciate it. We're nearly at the end of things. Alex has a question. Dave, this is a burning question that's kept me up at night. And I assume this goes to both of you because you're both named Dave. Did you just live off oats and halloumi?
In my streams, all I eat is oats and halloumi.
Oh, if not, when will the oat and halloumi saga end and the next food phase begin? Wow, that's some deep lore questioning there.
It's been 30 odd years, 35 years, and it hasn't ended yet, so I don't really see an end in sight.
All right. Oh, Tom got back to us. Because it was based on the Zodiac Killer, and that brought attention to it, and they changed how they investigated crimes because of that. Oh, was that they called him Scorpio or something in the movie, didn't they? Or something to that effect. I'm reaching back into my movie lore. I remember that. Yeah, the Dirty Harry sort of did a Zodiac Killer analog as part of the plot line for that. One of my, it's always morbid to say this. One of my favorite serial killers. Zodiac, because he was the most super villain of them all with secret codes and costumes and symbols and just like taunting the police and so on. And a lot of theories that they think they've already solved it or they know what the name of the guy was because of Graysmith's books. I'm still not 100% convinced one way or the other, sort of like with the Black Dahlia theories over the years. But let's see. Dirty Harry opened up the debate on need of special units to track down serial killers. Okay. All right. So, Dirty Harry and Mine Hunters. There you go.
Hey, before you miss it, one of your mods, Derek, had a pretty good question.
Oh,
just saying.
Oh, 1 second here. Sorry, Derek. There we go. Derek LaRue.
Jesus.
Sorry. Well, the chat rolls up on you, dude. When you're trying to do this, I tell you what. When a lot of I'm fortunate that our streams aren't flooded so much that the chat just kind of like flows like a river. Derek LaRue, how do the Daves deal with not getting depressed or sad from watching all the crazy actions and stories they go through? Do you have a secret palate cleanser per se? I know that when I did my third true crime video, I was morally fatigued by the end of going through all that stuff. So how do you guys have an escape hatch or a catharsis for yourselves, Stave?
I believe I've answered this one already. I'm very interested to hear your answer, Stave. That's why.
Oh, you want to know mine?
Yeah.
To be honest, I have very graphic, horrible dreams all the time. But
oh no.
I'm naturally a very energetic, usually, person. Today I'm quite tired, but usually I'm very energetic. I just sort of keep myself stimulated away from the content that I'm working on. And I do find myself going up and down. Okay, very personal thing to say here. Like I've teared up working on these videos before. But I just push through it because things happen. This is life. Tragedies happen, and something about these cases and is captivating to me, and it's very interesting, and I like being able to be a medium to retell these stories in a way that it's easy for other people to comprehend and follow, and even maybe, in film school I was taught to provoke emotion and to know when a shot dies. And those two things I think go hand in hand. And for me, when I'm feeling these emotions, I sort of can move to the next step. And I hope like as a viewer, I can bring those emotions out and then have them as well move to the next step until they reach a close. And then, you know what I mean? Sort of move on. Yeah. Move on to the next thing.
Yeah, you get. I mean, closure to that experience of having to go through that and wade through it.
Some form of closure.
Yeah. All right. Well, a little self-aggrandizing, but let's move towards a wrap-up with this question from Miranda Stone. Daves, what do you both think of Scribe?
Awful. Just
I think I can't provide a proper answer until we see his face.
Yeah.
No.
Agreed.
No. Oh man. If only I owned a camera, but oh well, I'll somehow survive.
The Daves have spoken.
We've spoken,
right.
man. And it's getting to the point where I've done so many of these Predator commentary videos. When someone's not showing their face, I'm getting a little suspicious.
No. I swear, I'm a good boy. A halo over my head and all that good
You
stuff.
know what? I recognize that voice a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's episode 3.
No, I've either been Kermit the Frog's older brother or Jordan Peterson in disguise, something like that.
Oh, Jordan Peterson in disguise. That's good.
But with that, everybody, let's start winding things down. First and foremost, if you haven't already, take a look at the links in the description to both Stay Awake and Dave's Lemonade's plethora of interesting stuff between their YouTube channels, their Patreon, Twitter. I think I put Dave's comic book project in there as well. Go check that stuff out. If you're not already subscribed to their channel, subscribe to their channels. Another note, and I usually put this at the very end, but I'll put it here now. If there is a content creator out there that you like, whether it's us or anybody else, please share their stuff. Beyond YouTube, you guys are the best algorithm. So if you know that you like somebody, and also if you can, if it's on Twitter or something else, be sure to tag the creator in your comment or your shout out, because I know personally, if I see that, I am so appreciative, and I'll try to thank you personally if I can. Because that really does help out the channel and getting out the reach and everything, regardless of what YouTube might be doing with the algorithm or punishing creators for doing stuff that they're interested in. I was going to go. Is there anything you guys would like to promote or anybody you want to shout out real quick? Stave.
Shout outs. I just one of my favorite channels still is Mad Orchard. So I just want to plug him till the end of time. If you guys have seen the movie Stranger Than Fiction with Will Ferrell, where he hears a narrator, yes. I wish that was Mad Orchard and I was Will Ferrell, because I could deal with that. His voice is fantastic. But the other thing I wanted to say is kind of interesting that I just noticed. Both Dave's Lemonade and I have 52 videos available as of right now.
Hell yeah.
The exact same number. So 104 videos if you guys need something to watch. You're both a pack of
cards. You're both a pack of cards.
Hey.
With only 2 jokers in each.
Right.
You will most definitely overtake me very soon.
No,
Dave, you got anything you want to promote or shout outs?
Look, I unfortunately these days, as we've discussed, I rarely consume content these days, especially true crime content. But there is one, this is not true crime related. There's one channel that I freaking love, and I praise it from the moon and back every time I get the chance. His name is Ryan Hollinger, if you all remember that. Ryan Hollinger. I'll write it in the chat.
Ryan Hollinger. Okay.
He's a movie reviewer, and he focuses on horror movies. And I myself can't really watch horror movies because, as Stave said, my dreams are infested with horrible scenes that I tend to write them all down when I wake up, and one day I'm planning on putting them together like a Pulp Fiction sort of. You got the same idea? It's a good idea.
I had one the other day. The other day. I'll text somebody as soon as I wake up, because I'm like, man, that was better than a Michael Bay movie. Like,
I'm with
fantastic.
You guys should start a series called True Crime Nightmares and just start like detailing these things out or something. Yeah. Hey, and you can take that one for free. You don't have to copyright it like Chelsea-Louise did. Everybody, thank you. I mean, first off, the audience, thank you guys so much for joining us. The show wouldn't be what it is without you guys coming along and checking things out and finding out about what these guys are up to and how they do their stuff. Dave and Stave, Dave wants to interrupt.
Sir, can I say something?
Yes, sir. Before we go,
I just wanted to say, Stave, I really really liked your story in the beginning of how this all unfolded. I really connect with it. I think it's an incredible journey. I think that it is super fucking impressive to go from that kid who's riding a skateboard and having those thoughts of am I going to be a laborer for the rest of my life? What am I going to do? Then to have that tragedy and to turn it all into this, I think it's really inspiring.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Sure.
Okay,
was
I'll
really
shut up
nice.
now.
No, I
you're fine.
appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, this is how structured I am. It's like, you want to say something? Hey, we're here to talk. But yeah, everybody, check out these guys if you haven't already, and let people know that they exist elsewise if you can, because like I say, you guys are better than YouTube to getting the word out. Moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. I am so grateful and thankful for my audience, Dave's audience, Stave's audience. You guys are the best in both support and participation and insight and discussion. It's great. I did want to, because I forgot to do it on my last stream, so let me do it now. Little known fact, I have now started my own Discord channel. It is relatively exclusive. And so consequently, I only give out links to it during streams, and then they only last for like a day. And even then, you can only get in if you say the secret word for that particular stream. And so I'm put the link in the chat now. And today's secret word is stave. We'll just say stave because that's the word of the show. So put it. So if you on the landing channel, you end up with that link. If I or my moderators don't recognize your nickname offhand as a regular, just say stave there, and we'll know that you're in the in crowd, and we'll let you in and give you access to the rest of the Discord. But either way, moderators, again, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. Everyone who donated, either to myself or, again, please direct your attention to the top of the chat box. There's a link there to donate to the National Victims of Violent Crime. If you have a couple of bucks to spare there, that's very much appreciated. If you can't donate, if you could share that link out, that would also be appreciated. I look forward to having another one of these hopefully next month, and I'll see what I can do insofar as guests. And as soon as I know about that, I'll let you guys know. Follow me on Twitter at @scribe_light. And Dave's and Stave's Twitters are also in the description as well. Guys, thanks again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I'd stick around for a minute or two afterwards. I've had some people just bolt without my opportunity to say something else. And so we'll wrap up here. Everyone, have a good rest of your Saturday. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend. I hope that you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.